There's something we need to talk about, and we need to talk about it calmly, seriously, and without pretending it's complicated. We are watching a rise in conspiracy culture on the right, and we should not be surprised by its success. Because conspiracy theories don't spread because they're true, they spread because they're entertaining. And entertainment is powerful. Fiction novels regularly dominate the New York Times bestseller list. Not because people are foolish, but because people love stories. They love mystery. They love villains and heroes. They love narratives that make chaos feel intentional instead of random. They love explanations that feel dramatic, secret, and emotionally satisfying. So when someone comes along and turns politics into a thriller, people don't just listen, they binge. And that's where the danger begins. Because what starts as entertainment slowly becomes belief. And what becomes belief eventually shapes behavior. We need to stop pretending this is just asking questions or thinking critically. What we're watching is something very different. It's the commodification of distrust, a business model built on telling people that everything they see, hear, or are told is a lie, except the voice selling them the story. That's not skepticism. That's manipulation. And history is filled with examples of how seductive and destructive this can be. Not long ago, millions of Americans were convinced that the year 2000 would bring about global collapse. Computers would fail, planes would fall from the sky, banks would implode, people stockpiled food, drained savings, and lived in fear. January 1st came and went. Nothing happened. What remained was embarrassment, wasted time, and broken trust. In the 1980s and 90s, the satanic panic swept across the country. Daycares were accused of secret rituals, innocent people were in prison, families were destroyed, careers ended, and years later it was revealed that the accusations were baseless, driven by hysteria and moral panic rather than evidence. The damage, however, was permanent. More recently, conspiracy theories convinced people that a pizza restaurant was the headquarters of a hidden criminal operation. A man showed up with a gun to investigate. There was nothing there. No basement, no conspiracy, just another example of imagination overpowering reality. We could go on. Secret military takeovers, hidden microchips, elaborate plots that collapse the moment they meet basic scrutiny. Each one had followers. Each one felt urgent. Each one promised secret knowledge. And each one aged badly. Every generation has its conspiracies. And every generation eventually looks back and asks, how the hell did we fall for that? But here's the part we don't talk about enough. The cost is not just embarrassment. The cost is time and the cost is energy. Those are the only two resources you never get back. Money can be regained. Status can be rebuilt. Even health can sometimes be restored. But time and energy are finite. Once you spend them, they're gone. So the question is not whether a conspiracy theory is true or false. The deeper question is, what are you pulling your time and energy away from investing in it? If you're spending hours consuming speculation, decoding threads, watching endless videos, and refreshing feeds for the next revelation, what is not getting your attention? You could be reading a history book and actually learning how civilizations rise and fall. You could be reading scripture and grounding yourself in something eternal rather than something trending. You could be calling an old friend, strengthening a real relationship instead of a parasocial one. You could be mentoring someone. You could be having a beer with someone you trust and talking about life, faith, marriage, meaning. Instead, you're staring at a screen being fed suspicion. That trade should bother us. Because even if the conspiracy theory turns out to be wrong, and many do, the time you gave it is still gone. The energy you poured into it is still spent. The relationships you neglected are still weaker. And if you repeat this cycle long enough, something else happens. There's an old saying, when you tell a lie often enough, you forget the truth. But there's another version that's just as dangerous. When you hear the same lie often enough, you begin to lose your ability to recognize truth at all. Repetition rewires the mind. Familiarity breeds credibility. And eventually, people stop asking whether something is true and start asking whether it fits the story they've been emotionally invested in. That's when conspiracy culture stops being entertainment and starts becoming corrosive, especially when real lives are involved. We are living in a moment where real legal cases are unfolding, real trials are underway, real juries are being selected from a population that is increasingly conditioned to distrust evidence, dismiss process, and assume corruption before facts are even presented. That should terrify anyone who claims to care about justice. You cannot spend months training people to believe that courts are fake, that juries are manipulated, that evidence is meaningless, and that truth is always hidden, and then pretend you respect the law. At that point, this is no longer commentary. It's interference. And conservatives need to be especially clear-eyed about this. We say we believe in objective truth. We say we believe in law and order. We say we believe in moral responsibility. Those beliefs mean nothing if we abandon them the moment truth becomes inconvenient or less entertaining. Truth does not become optional because the lie is compelling. The reason conspiracy entrepreneurs succeed is not because they are brave truth tellers. It's because they understand human psychology. They understand that fear holds attention, that suspicion builds loyalty, that outrage monetizes well. They are not strong because they dominate conversations. They are weak because they require constant chaos to remain relevant. Truth does not need escalation. Lies do. Truth can wait. Lies must constantly be fed. And this is where the conversation turns personal. Every hour you give to nonsense is an hour you are not building something real. Every ounce of energy you spend chasing shadows is energy not spent loving your family, strengthening your faith, serving your community, or growing in your wisdom. Imagine how different we would be if we turned everything out. Imagine if we replaced 1 hour of conspiracy content a week with reading the Bible, or learning about American history, or investing in a friendship, or mentoring a young person, or sitting quietly and thinking. Imagine the kind of country that would produce. A society rooted in reality, grounded in truth, capable of disagreement without delusion, able to criticize institutions without burning down trust itself. This is not a call for blind faith in authority. Skepticism has its place. Questioning power is healthy, but skepticism without humility becomes arrogance, and suspicion without discipline becomes madness. Wisdom requires restraint. Faith requires trust. Freedom requires truth. And none of those survive long in a culture that treats lies as entertainment. We don't fix this by banning speech. We fix it by disciplining ourselves, by choosing how we spend our time, by guarding our attention, by refusing to reward those who profit from our confusion. Because attention is power, and what you give your attention to is what you become. If we want a healthier movement, a healthier country, a healthier soul, we have to stop feeding the things that poison us. Truth is quieter than lies. Wisdom is slower than outrage. Reality is less exciting than fiction. But reality is where lives are actually built. And it's time we returned to it.
Hey, we the people like Garcia, so that's no excuse.